you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am Superintendent Kate Donegan, and I'm going to do some brief introductions before we kick off. So with me from the school side are Marty Hefner, our assistant principal, Nate McBride, the director of technology and innovation, Carrie De La Cruz, student services, Principal Stephanie Helfand, and our Dean, Sophie Leventhal. And then we are so pleased to have with us from the Kenilworth Police Department, Chief Brian Carlson, Sergeant Oscar Padilla, and Mark LeBeau. And from McCarthy Burns Security Solutions, who are working with the Joseph Sears School, are Robert Burns and Tony Scarpelli. Here's our agenda for the evening. And as we start the evening, I just want to remind everybody about what our vision and mission is at District 38. Really, to make sure that our students all leave with the portrait of a Sears graduate. And then together, the Kenilworth Police Department and District 38 created a safety and security mission statement. And we're going to start with a little bit of a security overview.
All right, welcome. It's a nice turnout tonight. Appreciate everyone coming out. We thought it'd be best to kind of give everyone a timeline, an overview of where we've come as a school district with our security initiatives. Back in 2000, we've had a safety and security audit of the physical building itself. From there, we've seen ongoing initiatives that were built off of that audit, like the visitor procedures that we rolled out last school year. You see lanyards and name tags, the entrance, the exits with the door numbers, the main entrance sign. There's just a lot of different procedures that we've implemented that were based off of that initial security audit. On the technology things, we have exterior and interior security cameras, new door access and alarm system, and then also last year we had the joint presentation with the Kenilworth Police Department, where we had a wonderful Q&A with the community about all things safety and security. Looking at new security initiatives, of course, we want to continue our ongoing partnership with Kenilworth PD. We also have some new friends with McCarthy Burns, who is assisting us with the new addition, looking at things with a different lens. Because with security, you always want to be making sure you have as many voices at the table, different perspectives at the table, and it's a constant ongoing revision cycle when you're looking at security and safety. Some big things coming up, we have fencing and different gates. So what you see in the back with the new addition, there will be some more fencing going up around the outdoor garden, also a little bit around the tunnel. So we're excited to roll that out to, one, be able to secure it down during the school day, but also two, to still have an open campus outside the school hours, to be able to open it up to have the community use the space like it should be used. We have updated emergency communication procedures. That's really the bulk of tonight's meeting, is to update the community on those. We have additional security cameras that we rolled out with the new addition. And then also we've updated our security system in terms of coming into the building. Some of the feedback we got last year was it was a little cumbersome coming in. So we wanted to balance, to have a welcoming feeling when you're coming into the school, but also honor the safety initiatives that we're rolling out. So we'll talk a little bit about it later on, of the new experience when you're coming into the school, where one, you feel welcome, but two, we're still honoring those safety initiatives as well. Traffic flow is a hot topic. Love talking about traffic. So just some reminders about traffic. There's no parking on Cumberland at any time. We want to follow the one-way signage on Abbotsford and Cumberland during those designated hours. And the feedback we got from our arrival and dismissal crew is, if you're dropping off students on cars, try to pull as far up as possible when you're dropping off, just to keep the flow going. So if you have room in front of you and you're picking up and dropping off, go all the way to the very end. So we have as least congestion as possible. And then lastly, just please be a good neighbor. We obviously are located right in the center of the community, so we just want to make sure we're just being a good neighbor and a good citizen.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about arrival and dismissal. So arrival, we have a new community entrance, which as Nate alluded to earlier, is really welcoming. So if you're coming up from the tunnel or the back of the school building, from Ivy Court, there's a beautiful entrance in the back, which is wonderful for our students as they navigate that area. And so it's really special to have a welcoming environment that all of our kids can have when they're coming into the school building. So that is our new community entrance, door number 9. So in the morning when you're entering, our junior kindergarten will be using exterior door number 16. They will enter the building a little bit later than all the rest of our students. They entered the building around 8:15, 8:20-ish. For those of you who just got that JK presentation, thanks for coming, so you got all that information. And then door number 20 is also designated for junior kindergarten, so that's right up our junior kindergarten hub. That's a new entrance and exit for that space too. But in the morning, it's primarily number 16. Kindergarten is also going to go through that door number 16. It's right off that playground, that kindergarten playground, which Nate mentioned a little bit about fencing. That would be part of the construction project too, is looking at fencing around that kindergarten space. And then grades 1 through 8, when they're entering the building, will come in through one of 2 doors. They're either going to come through the main entrance, which is door number 1, and that's the big blue sign right off Abbotsford Road, or like I just mentioned, the new community entrance in the back, which is door number 9. So having them come in 2 doors allows us to have, ample supervision as they're coming into the building, and then just easier entrances as they come in and get ready for the school day. Dismissal, this caused a little bit of confusion this week, so we definitely want to clear that up tonight. So junior kindergarten will use exterior door 20. They will also be using exterior door 16, depending on the time of day. So for instance, in the morning at 11:10, when they're bringing kids out and you're coming to pick them up at the Ivy Court, they will use door 16, but also that door number 20 is available as well. Kindergarten is going to exit out of their actual classroom doors, which is 17, 18, or 19. We do have a 4th kindergarten classroom that has the option to use our community entrance, which is number 9, but also that we use our Baker building door, which is number 12. Because of our 4th section, they have a location in our new construction space, so that they will be coming out door number 12, which leads right into the kindergarten playground. And then grades 1 through 8, students will exit the building from the door closest to their locker or classroom. The biggest thing tonight around safety and security is please make a plan as a family where to pick them up. I know that can be a confusing thing at the end of the day, so making sure that all students, whether you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children that you're meeting or picking up, making sure they all know where to meet and you're all on the same page during pickup time, and then that will allow you to have a better understanding of where everyone's going to be at the end of the day.
So looking at the main entrance with our new visitor management system, obviously when you're coming into the building, you're still going to be going into the main vestibule, but there you'll see an iPad or you'll see a QR code depending on if you have your phone with you, just to make the process as easy as possible. So if you have a larger group, someone can just grab their phone, scan the QR code, badge in, and then you'll be allowed into the building, or depending on where you're going, you'll be allowed access to that part of the building as well. And this new system, we've tested it out over the summer. It worked really well, really excited to roll it out.
For our kids to see us as a collaborative group and a collaborative partner. And so the more that we can spend time with them and the more they can spend time in our school, the more important it is for our kids to see that. And so they're going to be working with us with Bike to School Safety Week. They're going to work with specific grades around safety, to and from school. And so their presence is key and vital to our partnership. Ongoing social and emotional learning support, that happens daily. We have our Caring School Community, which happens every day to start the day. So all of our kids are, in that space going through that program. Last year was our first year, so we're excited to start our second year of that program and see how that vertically aligns from last year. Kids in 1st grade are now going to have it in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, so on and so forth. And so that's going to really allow them to dive deeper into that content and really get comfortable with that program so we can build a sense of community. And then we have a student support team that works, in the schoolhouse, supporting the students' needs on a regular basis, whether that be through consult, whether that be through an incident, whether that be on a regular basis, depending on plans. We have a response to behavior that's in alignment with our caring school community. It's consistent, it's caring, it's firm. We are continuously promoting See Something, Say Something. At this time, I just want to highlight that on our website, we do have an anonymous safety reporting form that we always, recommend families use if they want to report something they see. It can be anonymous, but also has specific questions for you to answer if you want to be, if you want to, have a follow-up conversation with administration, or if you just want to provide more details. So that's a student safety reporting form that's on our website. So we encourage everyone to use that. And we just want to empower everyone to feel comfortable seeing something and saying something, both our community, but obviously our students too. And then we have common area behavior expectations. It's something we review for the first week of school with our kids, and that's ongoing. So it's not just a one and done type situation. We're going to be reviewing those protocols throughout the school year. So just to highlight some of that day-to-day safety, because obviously that's paramount to us, giving this presentation and keeping everyone safe, from very imminent threats, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, but also just that day-to-day and that social and emotional well-being is at the forefront of everyone's mind, as it should be. So as I mentioned, the student safety reporting form, when we share this out, I have a link to it directly. It is on our website, and you can find it under the student section of our website, and it's the first thing that pops up, but you can also click on here when we share this presentation. This presentation is also being recorded, so you can go back and watch it, and for those of your friends that couldn't make it, or community members that couldn't make it, they're going to have the ability to watch it too. So emergency preparedness, just a quick update. We have a threat assessment team internally. It's made up of staff members and in collaboration with the police department. And then every year we have specific meetings that we go through in our threat assessment and for our protocol to update those procedures, as well as just our emergency preparedness in general. And so we have just an annual handbook meeting. We have an annual emergency preparedness meeting where we talk about drills, training, quick guides, manuals. We have a threat assessment protocol and manual that we review every year. And that's actually part of what McCarthy Burns did this summer with us, is they looked at a lot of our protocols from these meetings that we had in the spring and just updated those with us after that first round of feedback. And then we have evacuation procedures and routes that have been updated with the new construction. I actually took a walk with our fire department yesterday. We're getting ready to plan our first fire drill so that we can go through those protocols and evacuation protocols with the new construction to make sure they're efficient and as safe as possible for our students and staff.
So looking at different types of communication, like Marty said, the majority of what you're going to be dealing with is more of that day-to-day type of support. But there are times where you might see different types of communication that goes out. Or a couple of examples that we had last year. And as a district, we really wanted to look at how can we improve. And we were fortunate enough, our communications coordinator, Chris Manera, he attended a conference that kind of walk through our different types of communication that the district is going to be adopting. So during a time of crisis or emergency, you're going to see different types of communication from the school district. One, you're going to see an immediate communication, and we're going to give examples tonight of what that looks like, where it's going to be a website update, it's going to be a text, it's going to be a phone call, and it's also going to be an email. You're also going to have later on an incident in progress updates, which is also website, text, phone call, and email. And then an immediate post-incident communication, where it's a website, text, phone call, and email. And then afterwards, you're going to see probably a little bit longer email of us sharing as more of a debrief and an action summary. And that's where you'll probably get the majority of kind of the whole scope of what happened and what we're able to share. And we thought streamlining the communication, one, for us in the moment, it frees us up to be able to respond to the incident, but two, it also kind of sets an expectation as a parent or guardian to understand what is this communication, why am I receiving it, and what can I expect next. So a large chunk of what we're going to be talking about next are these different types of emergencies that we could possibly see and the different procedures we have in place. But we're very fortunate. Chris is a rock star. He spent a lot of time building these out in coordination with everyone here at the table, and we're excited to talk about it tonight.
So when we go into this emergency situation, part of the presentation, I just want to highlight is we are going to walk through some of our emergency protocols. We're not going to be going into so much detail because some of these protocols are internally planned and internally organized, and the more information we share, the less effective they can be. They're supposed to be internal. They're supposed to be for our staff and our students in case something does happen. So we're going to try to give you an overview so that we're as transparent as we can be, because we want to be on the same page and we want to be partners with you, but also we want you to understand what these protocols actually are and what these procedures are, so that if there is a communication or there is something that does happen, you can differentiate which procedure and which emergency situation we're in. Some of the feedback we got specifically from last year was that when the situation arose, it was a little confusing what was going on. And I think as Nate mentioned, we're really going to talk about communication here so that we can all be partners in this to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. And the first part of that is just understanding. And so, as I mentioned, we are going to be going over some of these, and I'm going to give you as much detail as I can, but some of the protocols and procedures are very internal, and so we won't be diving into that space, more of just an overview so that you understand. So the emergency situations, we have schoolhouse procedures for the following: severe weather. So every year we run like a tornado drill. That's an internal drill. We typically do that in the spring. It's where kids go into the hallway and they are away from windows. We're not really going to talk in too much detail there. That's pretty self-explanatory. The goal is just to make sure that you don't have any, you're not situated to access outside of the schoolhouse or any windows in case there's severe weather. We do a bus evacuation drill. As you know, we don't have buses to school, but this is for field trip situations. Both of those are required by the state for us to complete. So we rent a bus for a day. Our PE team goes through it. And we do just a bus evacuation practice, like I said, mainly for field trips. We do have a flooding protocol if that were to ever happen inside the schoolhouse. I'm hopeful that with the new construction, we're in the clear. Hazardous materials, that is, that would be like a secondary evacuation site situation, which I'm going to go through tonight. And then we're really going to dive into what a primary evacuation looks like, what a secondary evacuation looks like, what restricted access means, what secure and teach means, and then what a lockdown entails. And with those 5 procedures, the way it's going to be set up is we're going to define it for you. Nate's going to talk a little bit about what the communication is going to be like from the school and what to expect on your end. And then I'm going to do a high-level overview of what the student experience is for those procedures. So a closer look at the procedures. These are just defined. I'm actually going to go in detail with these, so this is just for you to reference as we share this out. And we're going to start with primary evacuation. So primary evacuation is the process of completely evacuating the school due to emergency or due to a fire or other emergency. This is typically a fire drill. So this is what I walked through with the fire department yesterday. Basically, the way that this plays out is we get new plans on a regular basis, especially with the construction. So here our architect provided plans for evacuation for each of the classrooms, for each of the rooms in our building. Sorry about that. Can you still hear me? Okay. Once those, this is awesome. All right. It's like every time I talk into the mic, it turns on. So when we get the new plans, what happens is I take those plans and I immediately meet with the fire department. And I want to take a walk of the schoolhouse with the fire department and those new plans. So that's my initial step. So we did that yesterday. So we walked through with our new plans in hand, and we just looked at the new exits that we have. One of the things that the fire department did say yesterday was that we're very fortunate. We were able to be in a safe space. We provided a safe enough environment as possible over the last 2 years with construction. But now the construction is completing phase 2. The amount of exits we have for primary evacuation has nearly doubled, and so the safety of our kids is much higher. So if a fire were to happen, we're able to evacuate the building much quicker than what we were in the past, and we evacuated pretty quickly even given the circumstances of construction. So we'll walk through that, and then the next step will be that first fire drill. The first fire drill is to practice with the kids with the staff, but also to get feedback directly from the fire department as they're watching us run this drill with new evacuation protocols. So it's definitely a feedback session too, and we're in collaboration with the fire department regularly, so that partnership is really valuable to us.
All right, so looking at the types of communication, I'm obviously not going to read all this to you. We thought it would be beneficial to have kind of our template ready to go, so when we share this out to the community, you have this as a resource. So what we put together here is a immediate communication that you would receive. So this is kind of like step one in that communication process. And the example for this one is around fire. So based off of, well, first, in October, you'll receive a testing of the emergency communication system. We did that 2 years ago. We're going to do it again this year. And that gives you the ability to, one, say if you received it via text, phone call, and email. If you didn't, you will alert us, and then we'll make sure that everything is updated on our end. And text, obviously, is more, hey, this is going on. Look to our website for more information. Phone call, same thing, a little bit more information because we can add more characters, but really we're trying to drive all the traffic to our website or the email you're going to receive, and that's just because we're able to add a little bit more information in those platforms, and one, it allows us to kind of focus our attention in providing as much up-to-date information as possible just to one source, where the phone and text is just to let you know that something is going on and reference the website and email. The big thing here is if there is a fire, you're going to see information in here, not only what's going on, but what you can do as a community member or a parent or guardian. And with this one is obviously stay away from the building and also limit your communication with school personnel at this point. And that's just because at step one, we're dealing with the issue in front of us, and we understand how valuable your child is to you. And we really want to spend all of our energy on dealing with the situation and helping our staff and kids out. So we have that information in there to update you on what's going on, but also as a parent, how can you help the situation out?
And then a student experience for a fire drill or primary evacuation would be they evacuate the building as quickly as possible according to our emergency plan. They line up outside the school building, and there's designated locations for each classroom, and then they re-enter the building once it's safe to do so. Next, we have our secondary evacuation. So what this does is this provides, we have 2 locations off of our school property that we would go to. And this would be like, as I mentioned before, like a hazardous material situation where we could not be in the building. And so I'm working closely with New Trier, that's one of our evacuation sites, around what that protocol would look like on their end and how they would be able to receive us. And then our hope is that this year we run and practice this as a school. There'll be communication ahead of time. But basically what this would do is it allow us to practice like our reunification process as part of our secondary evacuation. So what that means is we're not able to have anyone pick anyone up at the school because of a hazardous material or something going on at the school that you would not be able to enter, or students would not be able to be here at that time. So what we'd have to do is practice reunifying families at these offsite locations. And it's good to practice that protocol, both for staff, students, and then just getting that communication from your end that Nate's going to talk about here in a second. So that's something we're going to implement this year as a drill. For us, this is not required by the state, but this is something that we need to do on a regular basis to make sure that we're up to date. And then it's just good to practice getting to those evacuation sites for our kids, and so they have an understanding of where to go and the direction to go, and following the lead of the teachers.
And before we get to the communication here, speaking with the consultants and the police department, it's really being able to practice, train, and practice and train and have that be an ongoing part of the school year is essential. So when we do have these things that pop up, we're ready for it. And not just being trained by one person who's responsible for this, but we have 3 people in terms of next person up that understands the roles, just in case someone's not in that day. So we really want to put a lot of effort into training and preparing. And for this piece, there is a lot of logistics in terms of the reunification process. So with this communication, this is another example of immediate communication, but once we're ready to start that process, we really want to be mindful of following the communication in there, because like I said, the logistics of making sure every student is accounted for is our goal. We want to make sure everyone has been paired with their family, so when we call it a day, we know everyone was, one, out of the building, and two, picked up safely by a family member.
And then the student experience here would be they exit the building according to our emergency evacuation procedures, and then the reunification process begins at our secondary sites. And like I said, that's something that we're looking to practice here in the near future. The next two that I'm going to talk about, I think are extremely important for tonight. I think these two items caused a little bit of confusion last year, and the last thing we want to do is confuse anyone, because it causes fear and anxiety, and that's not our goal here. Our goal is to partner with you and to have you understand that we're ensuring everyone's safety. So restricted access is the precautionary action employed when there is potentially a threatening condition in the vicinity of the school. So nothing's coming into the school, there's not an imminent threat on the school, it's just in the vicinity of the school. So what restricted access means, that we do not let anyone in the building, nor do we let anyone leave. So if you're picking up a student, we don't let the student leave. If you're in the building for a meeting, we wouldn't let you leave the building. Restricted access means that you're in the building, anyone in the building stays in the building for how long it's deemed necessary. In the building though, you just kind of run a normal school day. And so it's not anything to be alarmed in terms of our protocols and practices inside the schoolhouse. We would not run a normal school day, but no one would come in and no one would leave. And again, this is if something's in the community. So this might happen if the police department lets us know there's something happening somewhere in Kenilworth or in a neighboring area. We might go on a restricted access. Nate's going to talk about communication. We're still going to communicate with you. However, it's not an immediate threat on the school, and so I think that's really important to highlight. And if it ever were to become immediate threat on the school, then we would change our protocol and we would communicate that. And so that would just be us being in constant collaboration and communication with the police department.
The big piece from this communication is if we're saying there's a threat in the community, because we're so small, we really don't want families to be rushing to the school as much as you would like to do that to see if your child is safe. We are highly recommending you stay away from the school, and then also, again, limit communication with the school until you get another update. So this is an example of immediate communication. And you'll see things in here about there's no immediate threat, but avoid coming to the school, wait until the all clear is given, and you'll see later on when we have an update, but also with the debrief as well, we'll be able to provide a little bit more information on what occurred depending on what either the Kenilworth Police Department, whoever is taking the lead in that incident. We're going to try to be as transparent as possible, but sometimes there's limitations.
And just know that communication around all of these protocols and procedures, we understand how important it is to you. I mean, we're dealing with the most important things in your life, and so that's not lost on us. There's certain things that we can share, and there's certain things that we can't, and we can only share what we have in that moment, what the information is given to us and how up to date we are. And there's certain things we can't share because things are ongoing and evolving. And so I just hope that we can try to keep that in mind, and on our end, we know that your kids are the most important thing. And so they're the most important thing for us too. And so when we're communicating, we understand that sometimes it might be a little vague at first. And the reason is because we're still looking into things, or that's only the information we have at that time. Just know we will communicate with you as fast and as often as possible, and as much as the situation will allow us. So I just want to highlight that we know how important these communications are to you, and how scary it can get to receive. And so we're doing this and we're sharing this with you tonight so that we can be partners in this, so that when you do receive the communication, you have an understanding that we're giving you all the information we can at that time, and that we will continuously update you as soon as we possibly can. Restricted access student experience. Students go about their day inside the school. Students are not able to leave the building for any reason. We give additional information to staff so they can update the kids regularly as we get that information and as we are going to be able to communicate with you as the community. We give SEL support as needed after a situation like this. You know, certain students react or respond in a different way, so we want to make sure we're supporting their needs as these occasions do arise. And then the only people that will be allowed in the building will be first responders. One of the biggest things about restricted access is, and as Nate mentioned, is it's just an easy thing to, as a parent, want to come to the building and pick up someone or be there on site. If we're in a restricted access situation and you're in the community outside waiting to pick up whoever it may be, you are in danger. And so you should stay at home while we're in restricted access, as tough as that can be, because if you're in the community, we're in restricted access anyway, you're not allowed in the building, and so you would just be sitting in the community with an imminent, or with a threat in the community, or with something going on in the community. So just keep in mind that when a restricted access communication comes out, it is safer for you to stay at home until it's safe for you to come out and pick up your children. This one, we renamed it this year because it caused a lot of confusion last year. Last year we communicated around restricted movement. When you're here, restricted access, restricted movement, and there's a lot of similarities there, and so it can cause a lot of confusion. So we renamed this Secure and Teach. So restricted movement is what it used to be called. We're going to call it Secure and Teach because what happens is students just don't leave the classroom. So they can still learn, lessons still happen, activities still happen, they just can't leave the classroom. The main purpose for a Secure and Teach is basically a medical emergency in a hallway. So what that means is, hypothetically, if someone were to have like a seizure in the hallway, we would need that hallway to be completely cleared so the medical and first responders can get through the hallway as quickly as possible. So we would do a Secure and Teach so there's not traffic in the hallway. That is when this protocol would be used more often than not. Is if we have a medical emergency in the hallway. And a lot of times too, this might not happen throughout the whole school building. It might be just a wing or a section. We might have a Secure and Teach in the second grade hallway because the second grade hallway is where where a person needs to get picked up from the ambulance and we need that hallway clear. So Secure and Teach, again, they're in their classroom, they're not leaving the classroom, and they are just going about their day. And a lot of times it's just going to be sections of the building, depending on where we need to implement this protocol.
And to add what Marty was saying, with this type of Secure and Teach, you may not see an initial immediate communication because it may not be a larger impact of who needs that communication. Of course, if it's an individual student need, the parent and guardian could be contacted. So depending on kind of the level of emergency, you would possibly see an immediate communication, depending on who all is involved.
So Secure and Teach student experience, we continuously review what a Secure and Teach means. It's not a crisis situation, no one is in harm. So I think that's really imperative to show and share with the kids as often as possible. Students stay in the classroom when the protocol is announced, they go about their day, so daily activities stay the same. And then the schedule may be modified depending on how long the Secure and Teach happens, depending on how long a medical situation may take. All right, and last, we're going to be talking about our lockdown. Just a couple things to highlight here. Obviously, the scariest of all of our procedures. I think it's important to acknowledge that. One of the things that we've talked about over the summer with our consultants in the police department is this obviously is one of the protocols, if not the protocol, that gets the most publicity. And so you're hearing a lot about imminent threats in schools throughout the country, and it's unfortunate for sure. But statistically speaking, it is rare. And so I'm not diminishing this at all, but I want to put that out there because I think it's important to understand that this is rare. But we do everything we can to prepare for this. This is something that I think about a lot because I want to make sure that everyone's safe at all times. And I want to make sure that our protocols are implemented with fidelity, that we're training, and that if anything were to occur that we are ready for it to the best of our ability. And that's why our partnership with the KPD and our consultants is so valuable, because this is something that we're continuously talking about and revising and thinking about how we can keep everyone as safe as possible if a situation like this were to occur. So a lockdown procedure is a protective action employed for anyone in the building when there's an imminent threat approaching the school campus, on the campus, or in the building. Active threat situations are unpredictable and evolve quickly, so that's why making sure that we're communicating, we're teaching, we're training, we're constantly revising, and having conversations around this is important. We will run a lockdown drill, as we do every year, and we provide you communication ahead of that lockdown drill so that you can have conversations at home around this. But also in the lockdown drill, this kind of relates directly to a lot of the improvements we made as a school, just in our construction project and just some of the protocols we have internally. So for instance, I've had a few conversations with some of the people in the crowd here tonight, which I encourage, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we're locking all doors in the schoolhouse at all times. So yesterday, today, I'm walking around the building, making sure all school doors are locked, inside the building, outside the building. We're constantly working with our building and grounds crew to check that. We have our police department on site in the morning, afternoon. We're asking them to kind of walk around and see, making sure everything's locked up. But internally too, so the classrooms that all of our kids in, all of our staff's in, is going to be locked at all times. If it's not, we lock it immediately, and then we send reminders. One of the things that Kate knows better than I do, but percentage-wise, when there's an imminent threat in the school or there's an active shooter, if a door is locked, the chances of that person going in is almost none. And so they basically go throughout the schoolhouse and they try to find a door that's unlocked, and then that's when tragedies happen. And so that is one of the first things we do, and that's something we're continuously practicing and making sure that our staff is adhering to. And then a lot of the items that Nate mentioned with the fencing and making sure, I had a conversation with community members about Green Bay Road and just talking about how we're going to combat that with our new construction and what that looks like. All of that plays a role in this too, and so just want to really highlight that here as we're navigating this phase 2 of construction as well as going into phase 3 and keeping this at the forefront of our mind.
This type of communication, we're probably going to be close to what you see with the templates because it's all hands on deck at this type of emergency, and we're going to be dealing with a lot of different things in the moment that are coming up. But we bolded it out on here with a lockdown. The big thing is we do not want anyone to be coming to the school. We want our first responders to be coming to there, handling whatever they need to handle, and for our families to be safe and to be watching out for the text message, for the phone call, to be checking the website and email for additional communication. And again, a lot of what you see in the template, it may look a little bit different depending on what the incident commander is providing us and what they're saying we can provide to the community. But for this one, the big takeaway is obviously stay away from the school, but also the templates here are probably going to be close to what you're going to see because it's all hands on deck until you get more of that debrief conclusion email that's sent out.
And then student experience, obviously, the scariest of them all. So we got to make sure that we are internally providing as much social emotional support after anything that we do, whether that's a drill. Even when we run our drills, we'll make sure that our support staff is ready to go and on site to help students navigate that situation, even though it's just a drill. So making sure that that's always at the top of our list. They're going to follow the procedures specific to a lockdown, which is something we review ongoing throughout the school year. Additional information provided to staff to communicate with students when needed. And then, as I mentioned, that additional follow-up support is here for all students.
So I'd like to spend a little bit more time looking at that safety and security mission statement. This was something that we created as a group here. And we really want to honor, and I talked a little bit about this before, is looking at how can we best prepare, and that's training. We can work on a robust infrastructure. We've made huge improvements as a school district, but also it's a collaborative effort with the individuals you see up here, but also with the community, with students, with staff, with parents. So it's really a joint effort of everyone working together, because at the end of the day, the safety and security, it doesn't just live with one person. It's a team effort.
And so as parent and guardians, just some things that you can do. I think first and foremost, being here tonight. And then if you're not able to make it tonight, then obviously watching this presentation. I think that just having that investment is is very important, and we just appreciate that partnership so much. As I mentioned a little bit before, I've had individual conversations with certain families. I know Kate and I have done those together. We've done them individually. I encourage that too. If you ever have any questions specific to a situation or anything you want to talk about, we always are open to sit down with you and have that conversation and answer your questions. We find that those conversations are really productive. They provide transparency. We're able to get feedback that is really direct, which we take into consideration everything that we do. So we encourage that whenever the occasion would arise or whenever you have questions. Monitor social media and screen time as much as possible, just making sure that that's part of the conversation. Having conversation with your kids, both in that digital space, but also in the real world, just checking in how they're doing, how their day's going. Talk about how to call 911. That's a piece of feedback we got that's extremely important. What we've learned and what some families learned, that some kids don't know how to do that. And so I think it's important to review how to call 911 and what that does and who they're going to contact. Teach students their home address. I know it's 2023 and sometimes that's something that we don't ever review, but it's important for kids to understand where they live and what their home is, especially in a situation where that might be vital to communicating and contacting you, or if it's in a community situation, making sure that someone gets home. Being a partner and a neighbor, we're obviously a partner here tonight, and we just appreciate that. But just being a good neighbor, as Nita mentioned, not only with just traffic flow, but just in general. And we're fortunate here in Kenilworth, obviously. It's a great neighborhood, it's a small neighborhood, tight-knit community. So I think those things go hand in hand, being a partner and a neighbor. Following school and KPD protocols, as a school, we, just everything that we kind of went through around communication. KPD is going to talk a little bit next, but just highlighting, just some of the things like making sure things stay locked, whether that's your home, your cars, a firearm if you have one, any protocol like that they're going to dive into. Being aware, just in general, see something, say something. As I mentioned, we want to empower everyone that you included. What are you looking for? When should I say something? That's what the anonymous form is. That can be anything from unkind treatment, bullying, violence, threats of mental health, anything in that space. And then, last but not least, use appropriate Green Bay Trail route and bike safety around the schoolhouse. As everyone knows, that the Green Bay Trail, people should be traveling in front of Abbotsford Road, on Abbotsford Road, so just continuing to not have traffic going through the schoolhouse, in particular during the school day.
So before I hand it over to Brian, I just want to thank the Kenilworth Police for being here with us, but also acknowledge the fact that we are so fortunate to have the police department in close proximity. And they are here in the mornings and in the afternoons to help us with traffic, but also just be present on campus. Marty talked about how they walk the perimeter of the building to make sure it's secure. They're in and out of our buildings. That's not common. And so we are so grateful that we have the partnership that we have, and they have the ability to support us in the ways that they do.
Thank you, Kate. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you, Sears, for letting us participate, having us, and hosting. They've got a wonderful facility. You guys did a great job. Everybody should be proud. We got a tour earlier, and your tax dollars are definitely hard to work here at the school. I see a lot of new faces, some unfamiliar faces. There's been, as you guys know, there's a lot of new residents in town the last couple of years. So I'll just do a quick introduction. I'm Brian Carlson. I'm the Chief of Police. I've been with the Village of Kenilworth, the police department here for 28 years. This is Sergeant Oscar Padilla. He's been with us for 19 years. This is Officer Mark LeBeau, and he's been with us for 15 years. We've got a very senior department. Actually, as far as years on in law enforcement, Mark's our most junior guy at 15 years, and we go all the way up to, I think, 38 or 40. So we've got a very senior crew. So we bring a lot of experience to the village, which I think is great for you all, and also great for me. I will tell you, from being here for 28 years and working with numerous Sears School administrations, this is the best administration I've seen so far. The relationship we have with them is excellent. It's welcoming, which has not always been the case in years past. and that makes our job easier, your kids safer. So it's a huge testament to this administration and the school board, who's also on, helping out with everything. Nothing is more important than the safety and security of your kids. I know we've talked about that already. The Sears, you guys did a great job on this PowerPoint tonight. It stole a lot of my thunder, but all of us at the police department, we're all parents, so we all get it. We understand how important kids are and the safety, their safety, how important it is. So we get it. For the new families, I'll tell you that I know we talked about how the police department's always around the school crossings, in the morning and in the afternoon. That's by design. I recommend, if you see Mark or Oscar or myself out front, please come up to us. If you have questions, say hi, introduce yourself. That's one of the great things about Kenilworth. It's small enough that we can know a lot of you and your kids. That helps in a lot of different ways. I think it makes you feel more comfortable approaching us and calling us for different things. And I think it's a win-win. So please, come and talk to us. I'll let you know too that we are besides just being outside, we frequently just come into the school. I walk into the school frequently and get free cups of coffee, the bottle of water. Kate, if you've ever been in her office, has a fantastic selection of snacks and candies. So, yeah, it's, hey, if you want to know what free food and drink is, ask a cop. But we frequently come into the school, and that's by design. The teachers now, when they see us, they don't get freaked out. They understand that it's sort of, what we do. And our officers now get a better sense of the layout of the school, which is very important with the new construction now. It's even more important. There's some more new nooks and crannies and whatnot in the school that we'd like to be aware of. So, that's why we're often, inside the school. As far as frequently asked questions go, I sort of have a list of, a lot of people in town ask me certain questions over and over again, so I'll just run through a few of them. How does the police department coordinate with the school? Well, we coordinate frequently. We attend meetings with the school. We do training here several times a year. Kate and I, Marty, Stephanie, Nate, email back and forth, and the village also just set up a group text now. So Sears School administration, police department members, village hall staff, village board members are on a group text now platform, which allows us then to be all on the same page, so we're not in a crisis situation looking for phone numbers in a phone, dialing and texting 6 different people. It's I don't want to say it's a game changer, but it's just smart technology for 2023 that we're utilizing. How does the police department coordinate with our departments? We've got a wonderful relationship with Wilmette, Winnetka, Northfield, and Glencoe. We're all in the same radio band, so 5 departments are on the same radio band. With the exception of Wilmette, Glencoe, ourselves, Northfield, and Winnetka all get dispatched through Glenview Dispatch. So we're all listening to each other. And the beauty of that is that if anything sounds suspicious, it sounds like this is going to escalate, people just start coming here. And all the officers of the other departments are high-speed officers, so when they hear something happening in Kenilworth, or we hear something's happening in Wilmette or Winnetka, we start heading that way. So just to sort of give you a heads up, in short order, if anything were to happen here, we would have numerous officers here right away. So obviously, the 3 of us would be here in seconds, hopefully. And then our other agencies, neighboring agencies, would be here in minutes. So we're very fortunate, we would actually be flush with personnel in a very short order here. So that helps me, my stress level, and I think it's good for you guys to know also. How do we communicate with the police department? How do we communicate with the community, with all of you? The police department likes to send out resident emails. If you're not a member of our resident email group, you can jump on there. If you go on the village's website, there's a spot you can sign up. We send periodic emails out depending on what's going on. It could be the road closure, or, construction, crime alerts, but it's good to be on that email list. We also communicate through the village website. We post a lot of stuff on there. The village just recently updated the website. If you haven't been on it, I would recommend you kick the tires on it. It's pretty user friendly compared to what it once was, and they did a great job with it. We do coffee with the cops and other different events where we elicit information from you, and that's how we get a lot of our information as to what's going on, problems in the community. So again, if you ever see us out anywhere, feel free to approach us. And then another thing I'd like to highlight is that outside of the city of Chicago, there's because we utilize Glenview Dispatch, we are now privy to what they call IPAWS, and it's short for Integrated Public Alert Warning System. So in a sense, it's that presidential alert. Occasionally, throughout the year, you might get something going off on your phone. You're like, what in the world is this? And it's like, it hits every phone in the country. Well, the communities around here, especially after the Highland Park incident, really wanted to have this technology. Again, outside of Chicago, right now, only the towns that utilize Glenview Dispatch have this technology, but in a sense, what it is, if there's any type of, it has to be emergency. I can't put out that, hey, there's going to be a book fair or a farmer's market tomorrow. But if there's a real emergency, I can hit up every phone in the village. And that's a game changer. And I'm not talking about your phones, I'm talking about your phones, your nanny's phones, landscapers' phones, construction workers in the building here, your relatives who are in town from Virginia, whatever it be, every phone in Kenilworth gets hit up. So that's awesome technology that we have available and that we hopefully will never have to use, but we have in our back pocket if need be. We addressed it before, but guns in the village, lock them up. I'm a gun owner, you gotta keep them locked up. 3/4 of guns used in any type of violence, especially among younger people, the guns are from the home, 3/4. So if you have guns, and again, we know people have them, and that's fine, but just you need to be responsible gun owners and lock them up. And locking up ideally would be in a safe. And if you need any type of recommendations, you can feel free to email or call me or anybody at the police department. We can give you some tips and tricks and advice, whatever you need. But that's super important. Home safety tips: lock up your cars. I know a lot of people here have a lot of cars. You've got a lot of kids. And you like to sometimes keep the doors unlocked and keep the fob in there because people jump in the car. One kid takes it at 8 o'clock and then he returns at midnight, and our kid takes it, something like that. We really need to have those cars locked up. If you didn't see it a couple days ago, we had an unlocked car stolen here. Thankfully, the owner was able, with the help from us, was able to contact Volkswagen, and they were able to GPS the car. We raced down to Chicago and took it back with a second fob he had. But that's it was a win-win for us. But the thought is that if we can lock everything up with your cooperation, with your help, it makes Kenilworth a very uninviting place for criminals. And that's what we want. These criminals, when we arrest them and we talk to them, or when our neighboring departments arrest them and they talk to them, the common comment is they come up here because things are unlocked. People have nice things and they don't lock them. And they think it's a joke, and that's why they come up here. So if we can make it uninviting for them by locking up the cars, that'd be great. Also, homes and garages. Most of the crime we have in Kenilworth is a crime of opportunity. Crime of opportunity means that some guy or girl is driving through town, walking through town, on a bike through town, and happens to look over and sees your front door open, garage door up, and just decides to walk in and help themselves with whatever you have. So please, if you can, I know sometimes you physically can't because kids, dogs, you're doing stuff in the yard, you're running in and out, but when you can, please close those. Our officers are diligent at night. If we see something like that, we'll oftentimes leave you a little note or shut it for you. It all depends what the circumstances are, but we can't be everywhere all the time, so we really need your cooperation. Bicycles. We see a lot of unlocked bikes in town, and a lot of unlocked bikes that have locks on them, and the locks aren't being utilized. And one of the common things we hear from the kids is, well, they don't know how to operate the lock. The lock doesn't work. It's too complicated. It sticks. It's broken. Something like that. So, if you have a bike and you get your son or daughter lock for it, give them a little tutorial on how to use it. And if it's too complicated, maybe get a different locking system for them to use. Because, as you guys know, there's oftentimes a lot of nice bikes laying around here. And especially in the summertime now, we get a lot of foot and bike traffic, and it's very inviting for criminals to see a really nice bike laying out unlocked, and it's oftentimes it disappears. And we hate to see that. We had that just recently. Young kid sobbing because his bike was taken, and I don't know what to tell him, but I guess mom and dad will buy you a new one. I guess that they got a kick out of that, but. Lighting and landscaping, we have a couple officers who've been trained in security through environmental design. So if you want to utilize a couple of the officers' skills in that, feel free to invite us over. Lighting helps, landscaping. We've got a couple burglaries in the last year, and one of the reasons I think they got burglarized was you can't hardly even see their front door because it's completely covered with hedges. So the person who went to the front door was able to conceal themselves to kick in the front door. So, some things are simple like that. You can just trim some stuff back, throw some lighting on there. And we also recommend video system. If you don't have a video system, please install one. They're super cheap. The videos get shared with us, which is great. We can share with the community. Videos always sort of, everybody seems to want to open up these emails when they know there's a video attached because they like seeing some action. So, but it helps us, to identify people. So, if you need any recommendations on that too, hit us up. Reporting in the community. You guys pay a lot of money for us to be able to utilize Glenview Dispatch. So the main way to communicate with us for anything police related, for the most part, is 911. I know a lot of our older residents that are like, I don't want to call 911, that's only for real emergencies. That's not the case. So if you have a suspicious person, dog running at large, found bicycle in your bushes, anything like that, just dial 911. It goes to Glenview Dispatch. They've got many dispatchers, many phones. You're paying for it, so utilize their services. And then they're able to get to us by radio, and that communication string is much quicker than you calling a 10-digit phone number, or like, I know half the community has my cell phone, texting me. It just works a little quicker and cleaner if you hit up 911. If it's not an emergency, if it's just, a question, feel free to email us. We love walk-ins. We got somebody on our desk, 8:30 to 5. Feel free to walk in. Find my iPhone. When they were talking, I just jotted a couple things down, but my wife loves to use this Find My iPhone feature with our two kids. And my one son is in college, and she'll like wake me up at like 2 in the morning. She's like, "Do you know he's not in his room?" Okay, he's 3 hours away. What do you want me to do about it, right? He's 19, come on. But when you have younger kids at Sears, during the day, if there's a worry, if you see some kind of communication from the school, if you use Find My iPhone, if your kids have a phone on, you can feel secure that they're tucked into the school here. So that's sort of some pretty neat technology to keep tabs on your kids. I'm sure all of you use it, but it's a good recommendation. The other good recommendation is when we had this stolen car the other day was that most of you drive newer cars, and even if you don't subscribe to like an OnStar service, all these different car companies have a different name for it, but they generally still have some kind of app for your phone that allows you to locate your car. And if you can download it prior to possibly your car gets stolen, that'd be great, because that just speeds up the process if and when something were to happen. So that'd be great. I think that's really all I have. I think we'll open up for questions. Yes?
Actually, right before we do that, I do want to, thank you, Brian. I do want to just highlight just our consulting firm up here, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves here in a second. But just some of the work we did with them, as I mentioned before, is they looked at all of our internal protocols. They went through it as a team, and there's a lot of history of police work within this consulting firm that they're going to talk to here in a second. But they really went through it with a fine-tooth comb. They met with us a few times over the summer to finalize and get everything situated for the upcoming school year, which is great. So I'm just going to pass it over here to Tony Scarpelli, and I'm just going to let him introduce himself and talk about the work that he's done and the work that we have upcoming.
Thank you, Mark. That we may recommend. We're also going to be involved in recommending different trainings for the school and such, and to continue to help in a consulting, the consulting arena. A little bit about my background. I obviously am now with McCarthy Burns, but I spent almost 39 years with the Skokie Police Department. I held almost every position and rank that was there over that time period. I spent the last 9.5 years of my career as the chief of police there. I wore a secondary hat as the executive director of the North Regional Major Crimes Task Force, which is activated typically for homicides, major incidents and such in a 12-community area, which involve, Skokie, Evanston, Niles, Morton Grove, Kenilworth, so you get the idea, pretty much the entire North Shore. In fact, Chief Carlson was on North Half when I was the executive director, and he would typically come into an activation with a bag of snacks, and now I know where he got them. So I come in with nearly 40 years of experience, and I'll turn it over to Robert Burns to talk about his experience.
Well, thank you. And I'm retiring recently with 28 years, spent most of my career in Cook County. What McCarthy Burns really put together, and we couldn't have had anybody better than Tony, up here, familiar with the area, familiar with school districts in the area. But we also utilized chiefs and retired chiefs from DuPage County, several from Cook County Sheriff's Police who've worked and know best practices from school districts north, south, and west. And then we also have a couple consultants that work on the national level. So we really are bringing a vast majority and really of best practices. And we really study and we really read what's going on in Nashville, what's going on in California. Because honestly, when there's a good idea, just copy it. If it works, and that's how it kind of works. So, if we see somebody doing something, we kind of bring those ideas. And Sears School's been an incredible partner with collaborating with us back and forth and taking some suggestions. And we learned a lot of ideas and things with them that we're going to share in other jurisdictions and stuff. So thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure. And the police department is top notch. We've worked with police departments throughout Cook County, Illinois, and other states, and you've got a good department here.